Good evening, everyone, and welcome to McStabber Studios. Tonight we're doing something a little different than what we normally do on a Wednesday night. We've invited B. Dave Walters to be here to talk about what's been going on, honestly, and to share his experiences. And I'll let him, of course, introduce himself at first here, so everyone knows who he is. But
I mean, hey, maybe not everybody. B. Dave Walters, I say words about things. You probably know me as Victor Temple, Undisputed Baron of the Valley on Vampire the Masquerade LA by Night. I'm the storyteller of Anarchs of New York and Long Beach by Night and many other fine, high quality gaming streams.
and that's where most of us know us. I'm going to, since this is really your stage, I'm going to move over to the corner, hide up in the corner for a bit. You gave an amazing broadcast on YouTube on Sunday, and me and my wife, of course, watched it because we're fans of you. It touched us in a lot of ways because, for me, I grew up in some of the worst neighborhoods around DC. I lived in some of the worst places to live, and through all that and everything I lived through, never once did I have to worry about whether if I stepped outside, I was going to be shot by a police officer or harassed by a police officer solely for the color of my skin. And what you talked about really brought that home to me, that, for no matter where I lived and where I've come from, I will never have to experience and be on and really understand what it's like to be on the other side of things. And that's why I wanted to have you on here, so that someone who knows and experiences this kind of stuff can, help highlight it to everybody else.
Yeah, it's well, first again, thank you for having me on. Thank you for anyone who's watching. I can't see chat, but if anybody has any particular questions, if you type a capital question, maybe we'll have a second to get some of those pumped over, because it is important that we be able to talk to each other in good faith, of course, because it is a complicated and confusing time. Actually, not really that complicated, but still, here we are. Yeah, I think let me start off by first, especially if I did talk about this a lot on YouTube, and it was floating around Twitter, and it's on my at B Dave Walters YouTube and my at B Dave Walters Twitter. Let me start off by very clearly explaining what the problem is and what the problem's not. And I give you all a heads up that on occasion, for some reason, my mic just shuts off. So if I just go silent out of nowhere, give me a heads up and I'll turn it back on. Um, what this issue is about, what the Black Lives Matter movement is about, is calling attention to police brutality that disproportionately affects people of colors and extra disproportionately affects black males. Statistically speaking, way more of us get killed by police than we are members of society. That is it in the smallest nutshell. As you can see by all these faces behind me here. It's if you want this actual banner image, it is my banner image at the top of my Twitter, and I boosted the author or the creator of it at the time. But again, you'll see male, female, young, old, some very, very young. And it's for whatever reason, although I know exactly the reason, we might as well call a spade, but for whatever reason, there is a knee-jerk reaction in some circles to immediately justify this vast dehumanization and brutalization of people of color by the police. And you can see this in very stark contrast with the protest about a week ago up in Michigan, where the militiamen types showed up with flak jackets and heavily armored and tried to storm the Capitol. Nobody got hurt. Nobody got arrested. No tear gas. No pepper spray. In Huntington Beach, right here in California, the demonstrations to open the beaches back up a week or two ago. Thousands of people. No police. No riot gear. The exact same place, the exact same Huntington Beach, when the people were coming out to protest George Floyd looked like a war zone. And that is the issue. Again, I will say outright. Again, as it has been stated very clearly before, no one is saying that white people cannot have difficult lives. We are saying your life is not difficult because you are white. Period. Um, so that is, you see a knee-jerk reaction in some circles that it's um, that say things similar to what you just said, Bill, but take it a very different direction. It's like, well, but I grew up hard and my life was tough. It's like, yeah, no, it might have been. No, it really might have been. Your life might be hard right now. No, I get it, man. I get it. But not because you're white. And like then that's really the main difference there. And there are plenty of instances of police brutality against white people, white males and white females, and that should still be a cause for outrage. The problem is I could spend the rest of the day today posting videos of white suspects that were taken into custody safely in the midst of being violent and threatening, and unarmed black people getting killed. There was an image I saw some years ago. I don't remember where it was. Been able to find
There, your mic just went out, B. Dave.
it. How about now?
There we go. You're back.
Hey, yeah, no, it's just a push of a button when it happens, but I don't know. It's just, there was an image that was floating around some years ago, and I saw it at the time, and I haven't been able to find it since, and I've been looking for it since. And it was on the one side, it was white serial killers who'd been taken alive, and unarmed black people that had been killed by the police, just side by side. And it's like, I give the example so many times. Dylan Roof, Dylan Roof killed 9 people in South Carolina. I believe it was 9 people. And they took him to frickin' Burger King to buy him a cheeseburger before they booked him. Like, what? Do any of you think I could get arrested for running a red light and they're going to stop by In-N-Out to pick me up a burger on the way in? Much less after having killed 9 people, Because, and let me tell you, this is what it is. And I can explain it to you as simple as I possibly can, what the definition of white privilege is. And it is a very simple one. White privilege is always getting the benefit of the doubt. That's it. Oh, there must be some logical reason why this happened. Oh, there must be something. Oh, he must have, it was mental illness. He'd been drinking. It was a misunderstanding. He was scared. It was dark. It was this, it was that, it was this, it was that, it was this, it was that. Or maybe that guy just knelt on someone's neck for 9 minutes and killed him. Maybe a spade is a spade. Maybe sometimes things are exactly how they appear to be when you can see them with your own eyes. Now, I myself, being an eternal optimist, look at this and I actually hope some good comes from it. In the past, protest and demonstration was useful for enacting change from the top. Unfortunately, we've got a gigantic leadership void at the top, so I don't know what's going to happen in the short term, but I'm seeing all of this footage of these horrific scenes of the police attacking people and tear gassing people and beating people with clubs and shooting them with rubber bullets. Thing is, it's a lot of white faces in those crowds, man. And a lot of people are starting to see firsthand what it's really like. They're coming to these demonstrations and they're seeing the soldiers form up with their weapons, and that momentary existential terror of like, wait a minute, are they about to hurt me? Yeah, that's how we feel all the time. That's how we feel all the time. And so now that you have that, and you can take that back into your communities, into your spaces, and express to people how that felt, that is what will allow meaningful change. Now, let me say something, again, clearly outright. I have a lot of people that have reached out to me and they said things like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm sorry for being white. I'm like, nah, man, no. Never apologize for who you are. There's nothing wrong with being white. Like, white people are wonderful. Some of my very best friends in the world. Hey, see that thing I did? No, really. I've got white friends of mine that I would literally die for, that I would jump in front of bullets for, that I would wrestle grizzly bears for, that are my brothers and sisters, and I'm theirs. So if you yourself have not been committing racist acts or aiding and abetting racist acts, you got nothing to apologize for. You got nothing to feel sorry for. The only thing I would ask is be aware of the privilege that you were born with and use that constructively. That's the only thing. Again, to use the parallel that I used previously. I'm really tall. I'm almost 7 feet tall. When I go through the grocery store, when I see people struggling to get things off of high shelves, I walk over and I get it for them. I do that because I can. Because I'm like, hey, man, you're struggling. And that's a struggle I don't have. Let me help you, because it takes absolutely nothing for me to help you with advantages that I possess that you don't. That's it. That's all anybody's asking you to do, you know? But also, Bill, I don't need to just be on the soapbox this entire time. So I mean, please, I do. We can talk, we can chat. If you got questions, if chat's got questions, because I will rant and ramble, but I don't have to. So
Well, I invited you so you can say whatever you want, to be honest, because as I said, it's hard if you've not been on the receiving end, it's hard to understand it. And if you haven't been part of, well, as you said, call a spade, it's systemic racism. If you've not been the target of it, it's not, no matter how much someone says, well, yeah, but I know, I understand. No, you can't. Because I grew up in the neighborhoods and I was not worried about it, but a lot of my friends were. And when we were out together, I never worried that I was going to be the one the cops harassed. And it's sad and it's horrible, but it's the truth. And until you air these truths and it gets, everyone recognizes it and talks about it, it's never going to get fixed. It's never going to get addressed.
Yep. Yeah. It's, there's a psychological phenomenon called cognitive dissonance, where you can hold two completely false ideas. I mean, two completely contradictory ideas in your mind, and they just butt heads. And it is a very painful and difficult thing. And human beings will do almost anything to avoid pain. So when you tell somebody something like, hey, by the way, through no fault of your own, you've directly benefited from a systemically racist system that gave you unfair advantages over other people. And then it's like, well, but I earned everything I have. And it's like, yeah, you might have, but you also had an easier path than some other people. And it's like, well, but, and then in your head, that starts grinding, And that's when you see the opposite comes out, where you get people's like old racist uncles and things come out that start talking about how this isn't a thing and it's a myth and that's not true. And I pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I just worked hard. And it's like,
And the funny thing about that is a lot of people got away with that. Well, not funny as in haha, but just the odd thing, they got away with it. And one thing that technology has really helped with is everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a camera. The people who are doing that aren't getting away with it anymore. And a lot of people I've seen say, well, why has racism gotten so bad? I don't think it's gotten any worse than it always was. It's just suddenly everyone has a camera, everybody can see it, everyone is videotaping it, and they're sharing it. And that's making the difference. That's why, and I've watched the news. I've seen what's been going on. And you're right. It's not one color out there marching right now. It's everybody.
Which, I mean, that makes me feel good. I would say two things. I would paraphrase a quote from Will Smith, or at least it is often attributed to Will Smith, that racism isn't getting worse, it's being revealed. The events like what happened with Amy Cooper in Central Park, that's happened 10,000 times across history. That exact situation is what caused the burning of Black Wall Street. I don't have time to go all into that. Google it, kids. But that exact thing, exactly what she did, led to a massacre of hundreds of black people. This time, he had a counterpoint. He had like, wait a second, look, no, she's lying. And the whole world could be like, oh, wait, she is lying. That's weird.
And then she gets on Twitter and says she apologizes and mad she lost her job. But
Yeah.
You tried to root. I mean, that could have gotten him killed, literally.
Killed.
Literally.
Killed.
And what, a week later, we have George Floyd.
Yep. You know, and that's the thing. It's since some people tried to come out and it's like, well, is her losing her job and everything gonna like really teach her anything? I'm like, yeah, it will. And it'll teach a lot of other people things too. Because don't be a racist asshole is a pretty low bar. It's a pretty low bar. And if you can't make it over that bar and you suffer major social consequences, I don't feel bad for you. You know, it is not like she was driving and her brakes went out and she ran him over and she just couldn't help it. You know, where she was like, "Oh, I'm either going to like hit this kid on his bike or I'm going to hit this guy," and she hit that guy and it's like, "Oh, well, he's dead, but I'm sorry." You know, like no. She steered into that on purpose, you know? But I will tell you, this is actually why, believe it or not, I think this is good, and this actually makes me feel hopeful for society as a whole. Um, I am an eternal optimist. I believe human beings are innately good. Evil absolutely exists. We have
Lost your mic. All right, evil exists is as far as I heard, and then you dropped.
You know, there are some terrible people that are twisted to the core of their soul and do terrible things. Those people exist. What I'm saying is, you know, the average person walking down the street is good. And I give examples of, again, you look at times of crisis, you look at times of disaster, you look at cars on fire in the middle of the freeway, perfect strangers stop and run to pull someone out of the car. That's what human beings do. In seeing, you know, protests in all 50 states, you know, again, seeing protests all over the world, of every race, nation, and creed standing up to fight for us when they don't have to, is a beautiful thing. And I was just telling somebody yesterday, you know, Central Park High in Little Rock, Arkansas was the first school that was desegregated in America. My dad went to Central High. He is missing a tooth from getting hit in the face with a rock during the protests around desegregating Central. So this is in my parents' lifetime that it went from, you know, society being like, of course you go in the back door. Of course you don't share our water fountains. Of course you get up and give your seat. Of course. In 50, 60 years, to the pendulum having swung the other way, that the average person can be like, no, that isn't right. You know, a lot of people are giving these brands flack for stepping up and saying we support the protests, we support Black Lives Matters, and they're like, yeah, but who runs your company and all that? And I'm like, no, you guys are missing the point here. You're missing the point. Whether or not they mean it, whether or not it's some soulless corporate platitude, honestly, is secondary. If they meant it or if they just took the math of the temperature of society and see that that's the way the wind is blowing and therefore we need to align with it. Good. Because, you know, that is not taken for granted, you know, like, because it could very easily be the opposite. It very easily could be every brand was tripping all over themselves to be all lives matter, blue lives matter, you know, obey authority. You know, it is not a foregone conclusion that society could see what is happening to us is wrong. And the fact that it is a positive.
Yeah, they could be like the brands that dropped the NFL the moment somebody started taking a knee, and they did. Or the ones that just didn't say anything in support, which is in some ways worse. I mean, because then you're refusing to admit anything. I mean, it's
Yep. The silence is deafening, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, all things being equal, you know, is it Ford or Chrysler's job to weigh in on civil unrest? It's like, no, but we'll remember who did and didn't, you know? It's like Martin Luther King said, and I'm paraphrasing again, is in the end, we will not remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends.
That's really good.
Yeah. And that's really, that's the only thing I'm calling on people to do, because different people participate and do things in different ways. Some people are out in the streets, that is good and noble. Some people are being very vocal online, that is good and noble. Some people are voting with their wallets, that's good and noble. Some people are doing all of those things, good and noble. I only ask that people keep speaking the truth. When you see something that you know is wrong, say it. When you see someone spreading information that is not right, say it. You know,
Yeah, that
Share with people your experiences, and don't be afraid to stand in the face of hatred and bigotry. And it might cost you some friendships, it might cost you relationships with your family. I would just ask you, do those relationships really matter to you that much?
personally, I would rather be on the right side of history. And that's what this is boiling down to, the right side of history and the right side of humanity as a whole. And
Yep.
I think I'd like to think that's why so many people are out there in the street, because they finally realized
Yep.
it's a shame what it took to get people to realize what's been going on, because it has been going on a long time.
I mean, since the inception of the nation,
Yeah.
and I think it's also important that people know their history, to know that this didn't happen in a vacuum, because Black people occupy an odd space in Western life, in America in general, in the West, more broadly, and by extension, the whole world. On the one hand, the transatlantic slave trade lasted for centuries, 400, 500 years, 400 and change. And the systematic dehumanization of people of color that was necessary to make them property spread to every corner of the globe. And although that wore off, um, it has just been continued to whittle away. When the slaves were freed, we went immediately into Jim Crow. Well, Jim Crow was just a different kind of slavery. It was economic bondage instead of physical bondage.
Yep.
Right after Jim Crow, we come right to the civil rights struggle of like, wait a minute, we need to be able to like do stuff. The fact that this country, for all of our shortcomings, made the leap from killing Martin Luther King to electing Barack Obama in like 50 years is progress. It's significant progress. It's just what we're seeing now is how much more work still needs to be done. In that baseline systemic disenfranchisement of people of color, of basically anyone that was the other, really is baked into the foundations of our society. And it comes up in insidious ways. And it comes up in insidious ways through oftentimes otherwise well-meaning people. And I tell you, one of the things that happens with all of this, like videotapes and all the footage, all the way back to Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, when we first started getting the footage of these things,
Yeah.
in seeing unarmed, defenseless people being murdered. And everybody would always say things like, oh, well, they just had to cooperate. They must have done something. They must have done something. Black people used to do that too. We did. You'd hear somebody got shot by the cops, but you're like, oh, he must have run. Although technically that shouldn't have gotten you killed. But he must have done something. Like it didn't even like enter into our minds that is like, no, he stood there and complied 100% and just got murdered.
Yeah. And now that the videos are all coming out, it's there. I mean, and what shocks me about all of this is I still hear people online and on TV trying to justify what was done. Well, his toxicology report showed he had something in it. That's no reason why a man in handcuffs on the ground needed a knee on his neck and 3 other knees on his back. That's no justification. There's no reason for it. He was already subdued. Yeah. And to be honest, it was they thought he might have passed a counterfeit bill.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've made this argument so many times in so many places where it's like, when Mike Brown got killed, a few years back. They were like, well, but he was belligerent and he was engaging in vandalism, and he was being rowdy in the street and everything. Um, in Ferguson. Um, First of all, I actually don't believe that, because I think if they had any proof of that, they would have paraded it all over the place, and that's all we would have ever seen from start to finish if they could prove that.
It's odd how
But
that happens.
weird, huh? But let's say it's true. Let's say it's 100% true. Let's say he was going down the street throwing bricks through windows and pushing over signs that he wasn't, but let's just say he was. Show me anywhere in the penal code where that gets the death penalty. Show me where that gets you the needle.
That's where you can really see the systemic racism, because
it's everywhere, man. It's like when you see the disproportionate prison sentences that possessing crack has relative to cocaine. Well, poor people buy crack.
Right, because
people
cocaine's
with money
expensive.
buy cocaine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'll admit, when I was in my youth, I was living in those neighborhoods. I was one of those that was running around busting out windows with rocks and doing things that, I shouldn't have, because I was young and stupid, and I did stuff like that. But I was only going to get told, stop doing that, maybe a light slap on the wrist. And that's not what we're seeing from anyone of color, and specifically black males. They really, a totally different standard applies.
Well, and also, I think people lose track of things, that there's many ways for institutionalized racism to destroy a person. Giving you a 40-year sentence for an ounce of weed is still destroying a person. I mean, he may still be alive, but you killed him. Like, he is going to go sit in a prison for the rest of his life, and quite frankly become a profit center for the rest of his life. Which it's when you start tugging at the strings of it, if you actually can just stop and look and see it, it becomes very insidious when you see, again, the disproportionate amount of jail time that is given to people of color. For the exact same crimes, and then they go to a for-profit prison and become a profit center for someone who is going to turn around and then donate extreme amounts of money to the very politicians that make this possible. And for the record, another fun fact, kids, we talk about slavery being abolished in the United States. It actually wasn't. Slavery was never abolished. If you even read the Emancipation Proclamation, it essentially says, except for prisoners that are...
Lost your mic. You just dropped off again.
Curses. I really don't know why that is.
It happens.
It's I don't know where you
dropped right about the Emancipation Proclamation.
The Emancipation Proclamation declared freeing the slaves except for prisoners that are in jail. If you go to jail, by the letter of the law, you are literally a slave to the United States government. Literally.
Yeah.
So remember that when you're looking at these disproportionate jail sentences that are being doled out to people. And then you start to see it. And the thing is, look, y'all, it's scary and it's overwhelming when you start to see it. And I know, because obviously I live it, but they're counting on you looking away. They are counting on you not really being able to handle it and sort of just like, right? It's too much. It's too much. It's too much, right? So you can't. It doesn't mean that you have to be inundated. It doesn't mean that you can't still have fun and enjoy life, that you can't still go out and play D&D or see a movie with your girlfriend or go to church or just walk out and enjoy the sunshine. You can. Just be aware of how many people are suffering, and the fact that you have a moral obligation to do whatever you can do to help ease that suffering. And that is going to vary person to person, what that means. It might mean, again, like I said, for some people it's giving money. For some people you can't. I get it, man. There's been plenty of times in my life that it's like I could not spare $5. I get it. But even if it's just trying to be a shoulder for someone else to lean on, again, to signal boost people that are doing good work. Honestly, to signal boost law enforcement officers and police that are conducting in the kind of behavior that you want to see. Like I said, I think, and to tell you the truth, in the midst of all of this, with me being as vocal as I've been, the group that I've gotten the most greasiness from is actually not the right wingers. It's well, disingenuous left wingers and mostly bots that are trying to be like, no, it's all cops are evil. Yes, we should be burning everything. It's like, no, they're not.
Yeah, I saw your Twitter thing on that
Yeah,
earlier.
man. Like, what?
And
No.
you bring up the prison sentences, and that's one of the things that, if you look at a lot of the states, they deny, once you've been a convicted felon, you don't even get the right to vote anymore. So then you're leading into more voter disenfranchisement, which is also allowing these same policies to perpetuate, because you've basically taken a whole community that somebody, for whatever reasons, has decided they don't want them to vote. And it's funny about the voter disenfranchisement, because nowhere in the Constitution does it say everyone should vote except felons. And it's one of those odd things that, to me, I don't even understand why you would take away a felon's right to vote unless you were trying to disenfranchise voters.
Unless, because if they had a shot at it, they would actually do something about it. And I mean, that restoration of voters' rights in Florida in 2018, I'm pretty sure that passed. That was a huge thing. That's gerrymandering. That's why they're fighting so hard to stop mail-in ballots, because they know the policies that they represent right now. And right now, let's call a spade a spade. I'm being vague, but the Republican Party in its current iteration right now, Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell, Tom Cotton, those people do not represent the majority of America. No, they don't at all.
And I rarely, anyone who's on my Discord and has talked, I rarely discuss politics. I'll admit, a registered Republican, but I am one who feels his own party abandoned all of it. I am a registered Republican who can't vote Republican anymore, because in good conscience, I can't back any of the policies they've been coming up with, because their policies are, throwbacks to a time that we're not in anymore and shouldn't be in, and shouldn't propagate and shouldn't continue. And
well, look, man, who doesn't want a magical wish-granting government that is small and has almost no taxes, and, everybody is safe and peaceful, and we have a strong military and everything is fine? Who doesn't want that? The concept of fiscal conservatism. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. The problem is it comes hooked on and attached with all this other stuff. And that political platform, and a lot of people don't realize this hard shift to this evangelical fanaticism has really only been the last 30-ish, 35, 40 years, like post, like, I guess, starting with Reagan and kind of continuing to mutate to the hard right,
And I saw it get even worse when Obama was elected. It was like the whole party lost their mind in a lot of ways, and they courted the most extreme right of the extreme right. And I'd consider myself a moderate Republican. But now I think when you look at what I support, I'm actually a conservative Democrat.
There it is. That's that whole Tea Party thing. It's it is wild, and a lot of people, I think, you see a lot of people coming after moderate Democrats now, and really pushing for extremely progressive platforms and things like that. I personally, I'm of the opinion that everything is already moving to the left organically anyway. We just have to make sure we're bringing down the artificial obstacles that are being put up, and the cheating, the gerrymandering, the voter suppression, the voter disenfranchisement. Let the people actually say who and what they want, and everything will take care of itself.
I actually told my kids when Donald Trump got elected, I said that, in my opinion, I was seeing the death throes of the Republican Party as it currently exists, because
Yeah.
every year there's more and more liberal vote-leaning populists. There's more and more left-leaning policies as the younger generation, and as they're getting older, the older generations that's holding to that hard right, they're slowly dying off. And yes, they're being replaced in a lot of places in this country with younger like that. But when you look at the overall demographics, it's been a shift. You know, we're old enough to have seen the shift.
Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, go ahead. Sorry,
no,
I didn't interrupt you, please.
And it's moving left. And anyone who thinks you're going to keep it as hard right as some are claiming, it won't. They can't.
It's because the problem is a hard right worldview is predicated on ignorance. You can't know any different. You can only know what you've been told.
Yep.
And the world has become such that, I mean, except for in the most rural and remote areas, you know, they know some black people. They know some Muslims. They know some gay people. You know, if they don't know them personally, they've seen them on TV, you know, and you get the same, like, those people are terrible and sinners. And you're like, well, I mean, you know, Mo from my basketball team is cool. I mean,
Right.
it's short for Muhammad, but I mean, he's not trying to hurt anybody. What are you talking about? You know, he doesn't seem like an evil sinner. He plays Fortnite just like me. You know, that's and this is what before when I said black people have an odd presentation in this country. On the one hand of it was all the stuff about the slave trade, which I very much meant. The other part of it is America in general is still, I guess, the trendsetters in the world for what's cool. People look to us for what's cool. And inside of America, black people are the trendsetters for what's cool. In entertainment, in music, in TV, you know, like everybody's like, oh, wow, they are cool, you know? And so it puts people in such this odd, again, paradox where a lot of these young kids have grown up and they do look up to LeBron James or listen to Jay-Z or watch Oprah or like Tyler Perry movies or watch me playing games. And that is what is in their mind now. And that is what they're armed and buffered with when they start getting some of these racist diatribes thrown at them and it doesn't quite stick, you know? And you're starting to see that grinding of the gears again with that cognitive dissonance of like, well, but that's what I was raised to believe, but that is not what my own experience is bearing out. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of the protests worldwide, which again, shout out to anybody anywhere that has hit the streets over this. But it's like in New Zealand when they were doing the hakas for Black Lives Matter and things like that. It's all people that have grown accustomed to seeing us in that light, you know, and have come to value us in that light. And oftentimes it's a lot of other oppressed communities. And let me just say something else. Oppression isn't always about color. People try and throw this out all the time about how hard the Irish had it, you know, how hard the Italians had it, things of that nature. And it's like, yeah, they did. All of that is true. Remember your history. It's all true. We're just talking about right now.
Right.
That's all. We're just talking about right now.
And
I mean, England went out and messed with the planet. I know it happened.
and that's what gets me about those who argue the Black Lives Matter, and then they say, well, all lives matter. But just because Black Lives Matter is important, it's not saying that no other lives matter. It's saying that right now there is a problem, and it's an obvious problem. But you know,
here's why that's BS anyway, man. First of all, if you really believe that, because obviously everyone believes that, everyone knows that, save the whales doesn't mean screw the dolphins.
Right.
Everybody knows that, if you're acting in even remote good faith. Here's where you know it's garbage. Two things. One, if you really believe that, you should be more upset now, not less, that people are getting killed. And two, point to me anywhere, ever, there's been an All Lives Matter demonstration or an All Lives Matter rally to raise money to help somebody that was a victim of police brutality or systematic injustice or anything of the sort. You won't, because it hasn't happened.
Right.
It is just a way for diet racists to feel good about themselves and try and shield them from looking in the mirror and understanding their hand in the society that we have built together, you know? And some of those people, at least used to be well-meaning, I think. But we're kind of it's late in the day now, man. It's
Yeah,
late in the day, man. You know?
we're past that.
Yeah. I mean, if you can't see it by now, I'm like,
Uh,
that's kind of a you problem.
And that's one thing I'm glad about the technology, because
Mhm.
now those who want to stick their head in the sand, they can't.
Yep.
Because guess what? It's there.
Yep.
And it's right in front of you. And it's playing on the news, and it's playing on Twitter, and it's playing on YouTube, and it's on Twitch. I mean, it's you can't suppress it anymore. It's there. You can't hide it. You can't deny it happened.
Yeah, and I mean, you got obviously there's plenty of places in the echo chamber where they try, and there's places where you can go, but the thing is the truth is starting to leak in, you know, that it's those people's children and grandchildren that are out here getting pepper sprayed and beaten, and they're gonna go home and tell Nana, you know? It's like that's that and honestly, I think it's already happening. Like freaking Pat Robertson yesterday from the
I still am in shock, because I never thought in my lifetime I would ever agree with a thing Pat Robertson, anything he ever said. And my mind just, I even told my wife, I was like, you've got to hear what he said, because it's bizarro world, as I put on the Discord. It's bizarro world. You never thought you would hear something like that.
And, you know, and some people were like, well, but, you know, you shouldn't be giving him credit. He's terrible. Like, yeah, no, I know he's terrible, but you got to realize two things. A broken clock is right twice a day. And if we are ever going to make progress, we will make progress building off of the things that we can agree on, you know? And if this guy, terrible though he may be, is speaking the truth right now, I'm going to give him credit for speaking the truth. And that's wild, man. It's wild. So this is my hope. My hope is that, you know, the Pat Robertson kind of has a pretty good handle on the, you know, the racist grandfather demographic. And if he's out there saying this is wrong and this is too much, and that starts trickling back down, the rest of the base, you know, might start to, because it's coming from both sides now. It's coming up from the kids and now down from the old people.
Mattis today, General Mattis.
Did Mattis finally say something?
Yeah,
I actually didn't see.
Condemned.
It's been a crazy day.
Condemned. Said that what Trump is doing with using the military forces to suppress the protesters is a violation of the Constitution, and he's the first president in U.S. history that isn't trying to unite a nation but is dividing it. And this is coming from a guy they called Mad Dog Mattis. And, you know, a mad dog, you can't claim that he's liberal. You can't claim he's, you know, on the leans to the left. He was called Mad Dog for a reason.
Yep.
And he's even calling it out.
I didn't know that because yesterday they were, because one of the other Joint Chiefs said something yesterday, and they were like, they think he's trying to like essentially get a rise out of Mattis. I'm glad he did.
I am too.
You know, it is sad to me that such a spineless, weak-willed buffoon is at the helm of the ship right now.
It's not the right time to have it.
No,
if there ever is a right time, but
no, there is a right. No, but it's especially not a right time. Like this is an extra not right time, and this is a direct reaction to that. And look, same thing, you know, with what Bush said yesterday. I was incredibly critical of George W. Bush during his presidency. And I thought he was the worst president that we'd ever seen and would ever see. Apparently, there's always room to go down. But the same thing, at least what the statement he put out was leadership. Because the tragedy is right now, Trump could end all of this right now. He could stop all of it. All he has to say, he could tweet it. He wouldn't even have to go on TV. All he has to say is, no one should ever die like George Floyd did. Period. You don't have to say, yeah, I'll let you off the hook. You don't have to say Black Lives Matter. You don't have to say anything about police brutality. You don't have to say any of that. Just say no one should ever die like George Floyd did. And you would see all of this would dissipate.
Just show leadership. And that's,
Yep.
like I said, registered Republican.
Mhm.
I watched Obama's speech today.
Mhm.
And he comes on TV and he says things to unite, to draw people together. And Bush trying to draw people together. And
Yep.
from both parties, Clinton, even Biden. Biden was out there while the riots are going on, or, early in the day when it's the protesting, and he's out there and he's talking with people. And you
'Cause-
don't see that from the current president. And whether
'Cause
you're
he-
Republican or Democrat, that shouldn't matter. You should expect him to be humane, empathetic, compassionate,
'cause
maybe.
You're the president of the whole country. And he
Right.
gave the entire game away. He gave the entire game away a few days ago when he said, MAGA loves the black people. That is everything. Because what he's saying in his words, which he very much meant and doesn't even realize that he gave it all away, that his MAGA is a group that does not contain the black people.
Oh, obviously you haven't been to his Twitter before then, because he's got stuff on it. I check it I'll admit, for laughs a lot of times. He's got stuff on it right now about how no president since Lincoln has ever done more for the black communities.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah. Yeah. But black unemployment was so low. We should be happy. Also, dear viewer, there's still kids in cages on the border. Just that didn't stop. We just stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
And again, they're like, oh, but they're not cages. They're roofed cribs. Or it's like they've lost some of them. It's like, so that's my thing, where you're like, black unemployment is down. I'm like, brown children are in cages. And it's not about them being brown children. They could be lily white. If they intercepted a shipment of Swedes and there was blonde hair, blue-eyed children in cages in Martha's Vineyard, I would be just as mad.
Yeah.
It's the problem is, when you point it out, there wouldn't ever be. That would never, ever, ever happen. Because again, there would be a riotous insurrection if that were to happen.
Right.
And that's, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So we've got a question or two I'm going to ask you before they get spun out. Word 08 wanted to know, does Baron Temple still think of himself as a black man first, or does he consider himself a vampire Ventrue more? And what would he be doing right now with what's been going on? That's a good one. I like that one.
That's an interesting question. I have to put myself back in the mindset of the Baron. I don't think Victor thinks in racist terms. Actually, let me give you a different answer to that question. I will answer the question, but let me give you a prologue there. I do a lot of content with Sam DeLev, who is non-binary. And when we did our first stream together, Theogony of Kairos, they were playing a non-binary character. And I asked them, is it all right if people in the world address it, or it comes up, or they ask you about it? And they were like, no, because I expect my fantasy world to be better than this one. I was like, got it.
Mm-hmm.
So in that, I would say, believing my world of darkness to be better than this one, just listen to that sentence. Let that roll around in your head for a second. I would say he probably thinks of himself as a Ventrue first, and as a kindred first, then a black kindred first, because racism has no representation in the world of darkness. Like, it's like, I don't like you because you're a Toreador, not because you're black.
Right.
Even with the Nosferatu, that's everybody not liking them because they're different. If you notice, now I will tell you, if you talk about what has informed my portrayal of Victor, his core tenet is slavery is wrong. It's like I've said out loud many times, you cannot target these people because of who they are.
Yep. Thin Bloods, Kai Teef. Yep.
Mm-hmm. because I very much played them like, man, I don't like thin bloods either, but you're not gonna kill them on my watch because they're different than you. You know that's so.
Sneaking that real world in there on everybody. Mm-hmm.
There it is. There it is. So, as a man who is, ostensibly basically me, I've said this multiple times. Victor's basically me. Um, I think that's how he would feel about it. I think he would still be within position to recognize that, targeting people because they're different is wrong. As for what he'd be doing about it, he'd be out in the streets. He'd be out in the streets, live streaming and things. I mean, mass dominate is great against, and I'd be getting into trouble because in the vampire world, some of those people would be Second Inquisition, and then like some crap would happen. But yeah, no, he'd at least be doing rallies and demonstrations and raising money for people. Yeah, that's what the Baron would be doing. And to tell you the truth, it's interesting that you bring that up because in the context of COVID, I made a very conscious decision to not introduce COVID as a plot point into any of my stories. Not on Patreon, not on stream.
Yeah, and we've done the same with DC by Night. We don't touch on at all COVID, anything, honestly, any kind of a disease-related things because you watch streams, you watch, LA by Night, Long Beach by Night, Anarchs New York, all those streams, any of them, you're watching them for an escape.
Yep.
And the last thing you want to watch is the exact same thing you're trying to escape from. And
yep, especially when you can't do anything about it,
Right.
Now that being said, the finale of Anarchs is Friday, and what's going to happen there is what's going to happen at this point. But I mean, pending where we are with some of these things, in the social unrest, by the time Long Beach comes back or we revisit Anarchs, I might have this come up in some capacity. I don't know because this is different. This is an enemy that can be fought and an enemy that cannot be beaten, not an invisible one that lurks around every corner. I don't know. I'll tell you this. I wouldn't be surprised if the plight of disenfranchised kindred plays a much bigger role in the next story arc than it has in some of the ones in the past.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how I could work the same into some of mine. I'm not sure on the Wraith because I've got so many dark themes with Wraith coming up when I do the Wraith, but I am planning a Chicago game, so that may be the kind of area to put these themes in because
well, and man, it's whatever you feel compelled to do, because I do take very seriously the fact that some people are coming to these things as an escape, but it is also like what I just said I do with the Thin Bloods and the Caitiff. It is possible to sort of like slip some truth in there with like some sugar on top.
Well, if you look at the lore, you look at what's there. There's already a lot of allegories to this stuff. It's in the lore. It's there. It's just how you're going to use it.
I have to be very, very careful here because again, I am not an employee of Paradox or White Wolf, but obviously my career is very closely associated with them, so I try to be mindful of my words and the weight they carry. There's a community that use a lot of these World of Darkness stories and try and turn them into racist allegories for things. And to me, it's just sad, man. Like when we went through the whole Gamergate thing, and there's a pushback sometimes about not making the games too PC and everything. And I'm like, look, man, if you want to have all orcs be evil and have BDSM, elven maiden, sex slaves in a dungeon at your table, like you can do that at your house. Like you can. Nobody's going to tell you not to, but nobody wants to watch that and don't talk to us about it.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to go be terrible, be terrible.
For me, most of the allegories in World of Darkness, of course, is because, that's where most of the people watching know you from. That's where I met you from, is from that, is of course, the World of Darkness has a lot more of the class warfare in it, and a lot of the allegories about the haves, the have-nots, the the ones, the lords, the rulers, the bosses.
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
down to the high clans versus the low clans, as it's called.
Yep. Yeah. There is a way to tell those stories with, tact and depth and nuance.
Hmm.
I leave it to each individual storyteller, whether or not you feel like you need to, you know? Um, yeah, yeah, that's a table for table, stream for stream, um, decision to make, to be sure, but it can be done. I mean, I just did a charity one shot. There was a D&D game on Monday, and the inciting incident is there were these Empyreans, which are ostensibly, good creatures. They're celestials, they're giants, they're beautiful, that were going to wipe out a town of orcs and goblins because they were evil, you know, and the heroes were stuck in between them, and it's like, and the Empyreans' only motivation is like, oh, they're evil. And it's like, what have they done? It's like, well, they're down there, so we're gonna go kill them all.
It's funny you mentioned that. There was a video I'd watched. It's by a group that shoots D&D related videos on YouTube. And
Mhm.
it involved them starting off innocently enough, but then they started killing people. And by the end of it, they're standing by a pile of corpses. And one of them goes, wait a minute, does this make us the bad guys? Yeah,
There it is.
probably.
Yeah, probably.
You know?
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah. And I will just say, just as an aside, I know we're ostensibly talking about one real life or World of Darkness storytelling, but to talk about D&D storytelling, which you do and so do I, I think you have to be mindful of portrayals of things when you talk about like institutional racism. It works its way into things even like fantasy.
Mhm.
Be mindful of the fact of what you're labeling a good race and an evil race. I mean, obviously, the alignment is a baked in component of D&D, and I'm not saying that, like, every lich has to be brooding and misunderstood, but just pay attention to things. That is, like, if you're like, the orcs are evil because they're orcs, the elves are good because they're elves, start looking at that kind of stuff and be like, what? Why? Because
Right.
any correlation between race and morality is innately problematic.
Right, is exactly what we're having a problem with right now. Going for a circle, that's exactly what we have a problem with at the moment. Is that, people are assuming because you're driving a car, the infamous driving while black, you're getting pulled over. The cops are assuming you're a threat.
Something.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Have done something. Have done something. Like, if I just got to look and just keep grilling him and I'll find something. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I know that. I went the long way around on that. You said there any other questions? I was rambling. Yeah. Capital question, y'all. Just
we've got
questions.
Oh, there's some questions in here. There's I'm trying to figure out how to word a long one. I'll come back to that one because it's pretty long.
You don't even have to. You can give it to me as is. Like,
okay.
You don't have to interpret. It's fine.
Okay.
Even if it's a troll question.
Well, it's just long. It's really long.
Okay.
WDM 1262 asked, he has a friend who thinks this. I have been saying that the entire time. You aren't understanding. You're hearing me say race isn't the issue and thinking that I'm saying people aren't motivated by race. I'm telling you the root of the issue is not race, it's class. Racism is a symptom of a greater disease, and race-related police violence is as well. All races are killed by the police. All people are abused by the system. Because the system isn't designed to target one group of people, it's meant to target all people who fall into the demographic of not rich. And what are your thoughts on that one? That's a long question.
No, classism is a problem, but no, it is not the problem, and I'll tell you expressly why. Literally everything you're seeing in the world is Trump pandering to poor people in Appalachia. His campaign, the current Republican Party, is built on the backs of poor white people. It is crushing them and closing down their factories and closing down their mines, but dangling the red meat of, but you're still better than those brown people, in front of them. Lyndon Johnson had a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, that it's like, you can get a poor white man to do anything as long as you tell him he's still better than the poor black man. I'm paraphrasing. He actually meant it in a way that he was like,
I've heard
wrong.
Yeah, and it's sad but true.
Yeah. So, if those people were to recognize the classist struggle, then yeah. But they've been brainwashed into believing that the well-beings of millionaires and billionaires getting tax breaks is their well-being. Where those of us on the other side know it has nothing to do with us. And let me be clear about something. I myself am a very red-blooded capitalist. I'm like, if a person builds a business and makes money, good on them, fine. I think you have a moral responsibility to try to give back. But the idea that you've built wealth, I'm like, great, that is the American dream. But it is, those people don't realize that they are being bamboozled.
You had a post about that once, and I saw it, and it still sticks with me because I remember you put it on Twitter. I don't know where you'd gotten it from, but you had said, for all the people who talk about, the American dream and everything, do you realize you are never 3 months away from being a millionaire, but you are always 3 months away from losing everything you have, losing your house, losing it all. And that shows you the inequity in the way it is and how it's the system set up in a lot of ways, is because you're never 3 months from being a millionaire.
Never.
Unless you hit the lotto.
No, except the lottery. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, you might in 89 days you might buy a winning ticket. Otherwise, no, never.
Right.
And it's yeah, so that is a part of it, but it is not the part of it. No. Yeah. No. At all. Because yes, again, to the point, yeah, there is police brutality rendered against all race, nations, and creeds in this country. It disproportionately impacts people of color.
Right. And
that's the difference.
Yeah, and we saw it, you even brought it up. We saw it with the protests in Michigan with the COVID. I know there is no doubt in my mind that if a group of black men with AR-15s wearing flak vests and having gas masks on their waist stormed a Capitol building and started screaming 2 feet from a cop's face, I know where that would have ended. And that's not what we saw.
Here's why it never would have happened. They wouldn't have made it out of the parking deck. They
wouldn't have got into the building.
When the first one got out with a gun on his back, it would have turned into the OK Corral. Like the SWAT would have been there, M16s, live ammunition. It would have turned into a war zone in the freaking parking lot. Right.
And that right there highlights the difference. And for anyone who says there's no difference, there is a difference.
Yep.
Because
and especially if they're like, well, but they weren't breaking anything and they weren't shooting anything. It's like, lots of us weren't either.
Yeah. The protests, any of the breaking and everything, that didn't even start. That wasn't what started. It was all peaceful protests. And I've seen, for a photo op, I saw this. You can't say it's twisting of the news and it's editing. I saw it live happen.
Yep.
Where people were hit with, okay, it's not tear gas. It's pepper spray in gas form. It's okay.
Sure.
Right.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And hit with rubber bullets to clear them out for a photo op. They were doing nothing but standing there.
Yep. No, for that photo op in front of the church, they gassed nuns. For that bloated buffoon to go and stand there holding a book that he's never cracked open.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother discussion on that one. I can tell you.
We'll be here the rest of the night about that. Yeah, but I mean, they gassed nuns, and honestly, I think that whole thing backfired. I think that's part of why you saw Pat Robertson say what he said.
And the next day, the crowds were bigger.
Mm-hmm.
The crowds were, I saw more people marching the day after that than I saw at his inauguration.
Oh yeah, in disobeying the curfew and all of that stuff. Like that, yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work. It's not gonna work. The shows of force are not what the American people are looking for right now.
No, because
trying to look tough.
Would that have worked? Would that work 5 years ago? Probably would. Yeah. Be honest, it probably would have the shows of force. But when you're protesting the shows of force and the excessive use of force by using more force, you're actually just making it worse. You're actually encouraging exactly what's been going on. Okay, I'm trying to work some of these questions. Let's see.
No, lay them on me. No,
Astro Aberration. He says, question, positive discrimination, is it fruitful or for those who employ, or should those who employ it be dispensed in favor of people capable of viewing people as human beings as equal?
This is when you get into the affirmative action is reverse racism argument and the difference between justice and equality. If you've ever seen that graphic, you could Google it. It's the difference between justice and equality. There's two people that are trying to look over a fence to watch it. Three people trying to look over a fence to watch a baseball game, and they're three different sizes. Equality is everybody has the same size box, and there's still one person that can see over the fence. Justice is there's three different size boxes, so everybody can see over the fence. I myself prefer to compete, openly, and let the best man or woe man win, and just let that be that. The problem is, and where people get into this whole idea of, affirmative action is reverse racism, blah, 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 is you are not giving this person an unfair advantage in this job interview. You're accounting for the fact that literally their entire lives, literally every step of the way, they've had a head start. It is not a course correction on this one decision. It is a course correction over a lifetime of systemic disenfranchisement. So, in a perfect world, yeah, of course, everybody gets 100% equal shake. But we don't have a perfect world.
Or as I've explained to people before, generational education problems, because the money for your school district is determined by the income where you're at, which means generations speaking over generations, it gets poorer and poorer, and the education system gets worse and worse until it perpetuates itself to the point that there's understandably no real escape from the cycle except for just like everything
sports.
In life. Well, no, not just sports, but like in everything in life, everyone has their own abilities, and there are exceptional individuals, and the only ones that can break out on an educational level are the ones who are exceptional because it's been generational, and it's the policies put in place, honestly, to keep it that way.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's my answer to that one.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Let's see. What are your thoughts on people conflating racial division with economic division? Is it helpful to highlight how systemic racism has caused economic hardship?
I mean, we've just answered that one.
Yeah, I think we did.
See hashtag see above. Yep.
Yeah, I agree, because that's pretty much what's being done. Rain's Adventure, have you ever run a game based around a pivotal civil rights moment in history? And if not, would you?
No, I haven't. I have run plenty of games about you're at a pivotal moment in history, but they were not civil rights issues. Would I? Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I would do it only if I would have to make sure I fully researched and knew all the ins and outs of it, because much like with, when talking about any real major topic, mental health, anything else, I try to make sure that when I do it, I portray it correctly and not,
Yeah. Well, with nuance, with care,
Right. Handle it correctly in the proper ways. Okay. Dakotan says, for tourists coming to America in the future, what's the easiest way to find and support minority communities through typical tourism expenditure?
First of all, shout out to Danny. He's a homie. I would say it would just depend on where you're going. Most places have guides to, minority businesses in an area. And just try. Again, I get that when somebody's coming to LA, they want to see the Hollywood sign. They want to go to Hollywood and Highland. They want to go to Disneyland. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If somewhere along the way, if you can detour through another community, and it doesn't have to be a black community, go to Koreatown or go to Chinatown, eat at an authentic restaurant, to consciously diffuse your spending in that way, then yeah, do so. A lot of places also, have internet portals. A lot of places you can support minority-owned businesses now, by voting with your wallet from wherever you are. Yeah. But I mean, any city. I think if you Google, minority tourist attractions in a given city, you'll probably come up with 10 anywhere you are. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and you'll you'll definitely find various chambers of commerce or community
Yeah.
guides, or there's actually, from what I understand, there's whole internet websites devoted just to it, to
Yeah,
try to give the information.
and just support small business in general. This is why I've come out, against the burning and the looting and things. I'm like, destroying somebody's life work in their little shop doesn't help anything. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't improve anything. And some people are like, well, they have insurance, they'll get GoFundMe, they'll get the money back. I'm like, yeah, but also it allows the conversation to shift away from justifiable outrage at systemic police brutality, and it allows to make it about, look at these rioters destroying everything.
But I saw a guy on TV, a black male, young guy, looked to be early 20s, and a reporter asked him, why is the looting going on? Why isn't it all peaceful? He said, we tried peaceful, we tried kneeling, got told to stand up, we tried protesting, nobody listened. But it sure seems everyone wants to listen when something gets broken, something gets set on fire. And he has a point in some ways. I'm not saying I agree with the looting, I don't, but he has a point that there are a certain portion of this country that won't pay attention until economic damage is done. Until then, they just write it off.
True, but they're taking the wrong thing from it. That's why we have soldiers on American streets right now, like literally now.
As a veteran,
fire on American citizens.
As a veteran, I am ashamed to know that there are soldiers on American streets. I served in the U.S. Army, regular Army, not Guard, and I know for a fact I was never trained to be around civilian population. That's not what I was trained to do. National Guard are trained for civilian operations. But as soon as you talk about regular Army called up, like has been done in D.C., that is horrifying to me as a soldier, and it's sickening as a soldier because we shouldn't be.
Especially all those Second Amendment types, it's like you were gearing up against tyranny. You were gearing up against, the military being deployed against American citizens. It's like, well, it's here. It's here.
Yeah, but it wasn't to come for your guns.
Right. What are you going to do? Nothing, because it wasn't about the Second Amendment. It was about racist dog whistles. That's all it was ever about. You were so mad in Michigan a week ago. So mad. Where are you now? Nowhere.
Yep. And you're right. And the hypocrisy is just glaring for those who are willing to look. And, cognitive dissonance. Those who don't want it, that refuse to acknowledge it, will never acknowledge it. And you won't be able to change their opinion.
Exactly. So that's my thing and I get it, man, because I got into this argument lots of times where it's like, well, you shouldn't kneel during the anthem, protest another way. It's like, well, first of all, you don't get to tell us how to protest. Second of all, by definition, it is a disruptive act. We're not trying to make it comfortable for you. I get it. My point is, it loses the message of what we're actually trying to accomplish, and it enables the people that are trying to disenfranchise us.
Oh, it is. It's feeding the extremists and feeding the racists to discount the good that this is supposed to accomplish, and discount the entire purpose of it by saying, no, it was just an excuse to steal everything. And that's wrong.
Here's how you can prove that is true, is that we've already caught multiple people now that were actively trying to incite those riots, that were bad actors, that were low-key white supremacists and things trying to incite violence, that went out to set the first fires to then try and rile everybody up, because they know that that's what happens. They know that's the optics. They know that then gives the police probable cause to act with violence. So we saw it. I
mean, you can see it. You see it happening. And I pointed out to my wife some of the first nights of the riots. I'm looking, going, those are not protesters when they have military-style gas masks. Because I've lived in those neighborhoods, and nobody buys military-style gas masks. In black communities, you don't buy them. It's not something you would expect to buy. But a prepper or some of the other militia-type groups, they will buy military-style gas masks. And
same thing. When you know how to see it, like, because Minnesota called it out early. They were like, wait a second. what's that?
Yeah.
You just have to be able to see it. And I will say again, even though a not insignificant, we'll say 40 to 43% of this country can't see it, lots of other people can, though.
Hmm.
Lots of other people now are like, wait a minute.
And the moment you notice that, you start looking at the other stuff and you start noticing a lot more.
Yep. Yep.
And
so I mean, it's the awareness is spreading. You can't stop the signal.
yeah, and technology, and everybody has a camera, and it's
Yep.
that's a good thing for it. Okay, Grainwald says, Australian here. One of the biggest problems I feel is the private prison industry in the U.S. Now, I'm going to say right off, I agree. That's you should never have a for-profit prison sentence, because that takes it from being about rehabilitation.
Yep.
And puts it
Makes it a
straight
profit
into
center.
right. How can we keep them in here, because otherwise we lose money?
It's people, you start to sound crazy when you start calling out that you're like, no, look, it is what do they call it, the cradle to the jail, cradle to the cell, is that what it was?
Yeah.
No,
I know what you're referring to. I don't remember the exact wording, but I know exactly.
Yeah. It's like the cradle prison pipeline or something. Like I mean, it is the traction that many disenfranchised communities and people of color are forced to deal with in their lives, and it is tough. It is just really tough once you're on that path, that sliding scale.
And it gets even worse when you get out, because there's that checkbox. If you've ever been convicted of a felony, that infamous little checkbox on applications, which makes it almost impossible for a felon who even wants to make a new life and to not follow the path they were originally, to even get a job and to actually get out of what got him in it in the first place.
And it's like you said, when you were young, you did stupid things. You did. I did too. Literally everybody did. That's why it's called being young. In they're all, ooh, they just shouldn't commit crimes. I'm like, you would be hard pressed to show me a person who's never broken any law of any kind anywhere ever. Not even speeding. Not even speeding.
It's funny you say it. My father's is a retired police officer. My mother's a retired police officer. My uncle's a retired police officer. I know for a fact what my father and uncle got into when they were young was things that, when they were real young, felony level activities. I know this. I've heard the stories.
And prohibition and all of that stuff. And
I mean, we all do it. Not we all do it. Most people have done.
We all do it.
I'm not going to generalize. I'm going to say most people have done stuff like that when they're young, but having it follow the rest of your life is not. It doesn't let you ever get away from it. It doesn't let you break that cycle.
Which, to tell you the truth, this is one of those things. At the risk of crossing the signals here, I try to be reasonable and even-minded with anything that's presented to me, and that's why when there's this movement now where they'll dig up a joke that was said in poor taste 10 years ago, or a yearbook photo from 20 years ago with somebody, and I'm like, man, come on. As you dig hard enough, all of us have said something stupid or done something stupid.
I've actually said this before. I even said it. I believe I was on Gehenna Gaming's Discord, where I admitted that, coming from the environment I did, when I was younger, said a lot of things that I shouldn't have, and I regret saying. And it's not trying to claim you've never done it is not the way to do it. It's to say, I did it. I realize it's wrong. I know it was wrong. And I've recognized it, and I'm trying to be better and not go that route ever again.
That's all anyone can ask. That's known as growth, man.
Yeah.
That's known as growth. Wisdom is knowledge multiplied by experience. I did things that I now realize I should not have done and will not repeat. That's all. I mean, there's people I'm certain were dyed in the wool racists that are maybe gonna see some of this and maybe be like, oh, Like, it's not necessary to go browbeat them for the stuff on their timeline a year ago. It's like, where are we now, man? Where are we now? You know, like if you
I'd
can
like
be
to
like,
hope.
yeah. So, well, yeah, not many. Don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
know.
some. You know.
Okay, here's one. How do you feel about accounting for the disenfranchisement of income inequity, which leads to the generational disenfranchisement?
It's hard. It's I think there's two things. It's one, calling out that it exists, not acting like it doesn't. I think in people that have resources should try and invest those in those communities to lift those people up. And I don't just mean people of color that make it need to go back and raise up other people of color, although ideally sure you would. But anyone with wealth and influence to try and shine a light on some people that really need it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously you're never going to go wrong helping children anywhere, but there's a difference between um building a school in Beverly Hills, you know, and building a school in Compton.
Yeah,
You know, it's just it's not the same.
yeah.
And
Oh,
that
yeah.
is not looking down on Compton. That is just the reality of it.
Right. That
So
is
you're
the
yeah
economic basis of it all. Is that
yeah you're active. I mean, because remember, Venus and Serena Williams are from Compton.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, some people make their way up and out, but you never hear people talking about making their way up and out of Beverly Hills. You know,
No,
making your way up and out of Chelsea.
no, because you're already up.
Born on third base and thought you hit a triple. Yep.
Yeah. I mean
Mhm.
that's the truth of it.
Mhm.
Okay, Nerd Girl 54. Love the name. Nerd Girl's a good
That's
name.
a great name.
In terms of representation in media, what stereotypes have you found dilutes the message the most? As a non-black writer, Latina, what would be the best resources? What would the best resources be for subverting such things in writing? Oh, just lost your mic right there.
I myself am. That's weird because usually it only does it for like an hour or so, and then it's sort of like it's fine, and then it's like not fine. Um, I am less sensitive to this than some of my friends. I got some friends that straight up won't play a criminal or a gangbanger or something like that. I don't feel that way. To me, is a gig. But I'll give you two answers. Um, I was, and I've talked about this before. I was quite conscious when I created Victor that I knew he was going to be the face of Clan Ventru in the 21st century, and that was something I took very seriously. And it was very important to me that he had made his money in a non-criminal fashion. You know, now in the context of being a vampire, he's done plenty of crime, but in terms of being a human that made money, he just did it because he was a good businessman. That was the trope that I was trying to avoid, that hip hop has to equal crime or that black excellence has to equal crime. That's what I didn't want to show. I think, to me, back similar to what I was saying about the D&D thing, I think it is less about people of color should be portrayed like this or that, and more about heroism and villainy should wear lots of faces. In people should be able to see themselves reflected in those characters so they can see what they aspire towards or are trying to move away from. Um, because that's the power of storytelling, of what you aspire to and what you avoid. So and I've got some friends that feel differently about this. I'll give you an example in a moment. But to me, I want to see black heroes and black villains, female heroes, female villains, the Muslim heroes and villains, LGBTQ heroes and villains, and innocent bystanders and heroes and cowards, the full spectrum of the human experience represented by the full spectrum of humanity is what I'm looking for. And I think what I would caution you against is when you are writing a story and you're like, this is the gay character because we need one, that is going to be terrible. That is going to absolutely fall flat. Or this is the Asian. No, nope. You've already gone the wrong way. Write an interesting, compelling character and then give them the richest, deepest backstory that you can give them, and then they will be a three-dimensional living thing. Um, and if you're doing that, then it's all going to land how it's supposed to land. Everything else will take care of itself.
That's good advice.
Oh, yeah. Well, oh, yeah. Thank you. And actually, I'm going to save my example. I will just say that, other content creators of mine feel very differently, but that is how I feel. And that is how I write the stories that I write and tell the stories that I tell. Yeah.
There's no, it's an opinion. There's no right or wrong with that. We're not talking fact because, there's fact and there's no different from fact. Fact is fact, but that's an opinion.
All subjective.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's, it's good advice. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I will just tell you in general senses, I have some friends that are like, any character that represents some certain group, for instance, like cannot be the villain or cannot die under any circumstances whatsoever. And I'm like, to me, that actually cheapens the narrative, because especially if the viewer knows someone has excessive plot armor, that's not inclusion, that's pandering.
I'm not going to name shows. Arya, Game of Thrones.
Well, it's again, if you've got my black character, gets killed but dies an absolute G, or dies a terrible, treacherous, tragic death, fine. Like if it serves the narrative in a meaningful way, then that's what I want to see. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk storytelling, my big thing, and I tell everybody this: actions have consequences. There's no plot armor for anybody. There's never has been in mine. I do try, coming from honestly a position of privilege, to be aware of the stories I'm telling, to make sure that I'm not telling stories in a way that are trying to tell stories that aren't racist in nature, because as somebody who's grown up like I have, it'd be very easy to fall into that trap, and it is a trap.
Well, yeah, and there's still plenty of ways to scratch that itch. I mean, again, look at my interactions with Vannevar Thomas. Our beef is he's old, I'm young, he's Camarilla, I'm an anarch.
Right.
Any type of interpersonal, intolerant, note you're trying to hit, you can hit there.
Right, and it should be about the differences in the two, and your philosophical differences, not the race, not it shouldn't be you're against him because he is a black man or is a Asian or is a Swede or any of that. It should be the philosophical differences. He is the old blood. He's the old way. Vannevar's case, he's the old guard that really hasn't stayed modern enough to really be relevant anymore. They just refuse to step aside.
You look at Theo Bell's role of essentially he was Hardestadt's right hand until he wasn't, and the idea is he got tired of being essentially misused as a blunt instrument and rebelled. It's you don't have to say anything other than that. He rebelled as a Bruja against the old world Ventru / Camarilla hegemony, and that's it.
Right, and that's why he rebelled. That was it. That's the reason.
That's it.
Yep.
That's all you need to know. There it was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I do like. V5 has done. I know it got a lot of flack when it was being made, but it has done a lot to take out some of the things that were, I'm not going to say edgelord, but were honestly, is sad to say it, signs of the time when it was written originally. Just like my beef with DC. The source book.
Yeah.
It was so bad with trope. You had, if you were Malkavian, you were either a psychopath or multiple personalities. Honestly, there's just the tropes were so bad, that I had to eliminate a lot of the characters. I wiped them out of the lore because of the tropes and because they were written at a time when, racially, people weren't as sensitive. People weren't as aware of what they were saying or what they were writing, or what the topics being discussed were, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that they've refocused that in a lot of ways.
Yeah, let us not even speak of the Quay Jan ever again.
Yeah. You know?
Yep. Yep. We're just we're not gonna.
Yeah. You know, I'm glad about that one. You know? I see. We
Yeah,
don't have any. We were out of questions for now. So can you believe it?
It's no, I think that's good. It's just that we've just done such a wonderful job of elucidating all of these points. And we could talk the rest of the night, and
We could.
it's about 100 things or 1,000 things. I think first of all, my Twitter DMs are open, so if you think of something after we're done here, feel free to hit me up. It's just like I said, the only thing I'm asking for anybody is just keep speaking the truth. Speak the truth,
and try to recognize. Everyone has that sliver of racism in them. Everyone does. The secret is to recognize it, to realize when it's influencing things, and you seeing it, and to act on not being that way.
Yeah, I mean, as human beings, as Homo sapiens sapiens, we are hardwired to immediately recognize who is and isn't like us. Because for most of the existence of our species, rolling up on the wrong group was an easy way to get hit in the head with a club and killed. So the idea that you are aware of difference is not bad. That just makes you human. What you have to be aware of is any judgments or assumptions or stereotypes that you then hook on to those differences is when it becomes
and that's where it becomes a problem. Recognize when you're doing it. Recognize when, whether consciously or not, you're doing that. Tam Shu wants to know why you're so damn awesome. Because he is.
From my mama.
That's one thing. Man, a lot of people don't know that how I met B. Dave. This was LA by Night right after, I think it was right after second season. My wife had made a post on Twitter about she saw that B. Dave had a Patreon and he was doing Vampire. And she actually put a thing she'd love to get on a Patreon when we could afford it, so that I would get to be a player and have B. Dave run a game. And B. Dave, being the nice guy he is, just said, hit me up on DMs. We'll do one anyway. We'll arrange a game. And for those that ever watch my stream, don't realize that B. Dave was a storyteller for DC by Night for a memorandum that is canon to the DC by Night stream. He was, before it was even a stream, he was a guest storyteller.
Yep.
For a memorial.
That is true. Lily Sanger coming out to LA. Yep.
And
Dr. Samuel Ledlow.
You didn't have to do it. There was no, there's no reason you needed to do it, and you offered it, and it was amazing. And that got me to start listening to your podcast and the interviews you've done and the motivational stuff you've put out. And it really made me realize just how much you care, honestly, about a lot of things. And you are an optimist. I envy that in you because I am not. I'm not. And it meant a lot to me that, you would take time. We weren't part of the Patreon. You just take time for running a game for us and our group. And, it's amazing. And, somebody asked me about how, about you coming on the stream today, about, you got B. Dave on here? Yeah. Well, they're like, well, I couldn't get something like that on my stream. And I said, it's not about stream size. This is not a big stream. My channel is not that big. But B. Dave is a nice guy, and you'd be amazed if you just ask him what B. Dave's willing to do for people. I know you're busy. You have a lot of shit going on. You do. Boy, do you.
7 days a week, man. 7 days a week.
Right.
No, I appreciate that. And you're right. If it is within my power to help someone or hook someone up, I always do, because I'm just lucky and blessed to be in the position I'm in. I mean, I've worked hard, but everybody works hard. I mean, it's just, that I've rolled some crits at opportune moments, and I've not lost track of the fact that if I can use that to bring a little joy into someone's life, or bring a little awareness, or a little light in a world that is increasingly all too dark, I take that seriously. So
Depressingly
I'm glad I
dark.
could help, and I appreciate you saying that. And nope, still remember that game.
Yeah, that
Yes,
was Ludlow's in sad shape. We're coming to the end of DC, and I've seen where Ludlow Fates leads him, and he's not going to survive past DC. That's the truth of that
well,
character.
if he can get smuggled back to L.A., like we still got room for him in the Maharani. I'm sure that the
curse
would
the curse
miss
is
him
getting
too.
to him. It's the curse of the kindred. You remember his unique issues.
Yeah,
Okay, here's one.
I do.
Sanguine _Knights wants to know, would Victor have eventually gone after Isaac Abrams if he hadn't been removed from the story? So would Victor have tried to take on Isaac?
Yeah.
I still can't believe that Abrams gave away part of your domain to Fiona. I just,
You can't. Yeah, no, I'm still mad about that. No, I'll tell you something. Thanks, Lily, by the way. Shout out to Raylan. I heard her back there.
You can hear her laughing from,
I hear her back there, yeah.
She's got a loud laugh.
Do not laugh at my pain, Toreador.
No, she's laughing because she agrees.
But no, I'll tell you a secret. This is one of those vampire behind the scenes things. This happened. The episode where I became Baron, when we're there in the club, we went to break, and I walked up to Jason during the break, and I was like, "Hey, so if I kill Abrams, will it mess up your story?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "I don't know that you can kill him." And I was like, "If I kill him, will it mess up your story?" And he was like, "No." Because I had it in my head. I could make a move then if the opportunity presented itself. And then the story went the way it went. No spoilers if you haven't seen it, but I was able to get what I wanted out of him, and that was that. No, Victor, 100% was going to get him back for having stolen a piece of my domain. 100%.
That was messed up. I still, I like Fiona. Ash Minnick is amazing, love her, but that was dirty. That's dirty.
That slight was not forgotten. Let me put it like that.
You'll get yours. Is that what you're saying? You're gonna get yours on eventually. I don't blame you because that was messed up.
They say it's the Camarilla that can wait 50 years for revenge. I'm all like, I'm young, but I'm learning fast. Yeah, no, that's yeah. We had.
DJ Phoenix, are you like me in chomping at the bit to be able to go to a convention again after this whole COVID is over?
Yeah, man. It's funny because I'm the supreme extrovert. I draw power from those things. Like those moments when you go to Comic-Con and you can stay in front of the convention center and you can turn and there's literally human beings as far as the eye can see, like off into the horizon in both directions, nothing but people. It's like, to me, that's like Dragon Ball when they power up. I'm like, I love that,
I'm the opposite. I'm an introvert. The wife and I plan to go at some point to WonderCon or Comic-Con over in California because you and I have, a date to go out and get some drinks one night because,
I would recommend WonderCon because WonderCon's Comic-Con light. It's a lot. It's run by the same people and it's a lot of the same things, just on a much smaller scale. Yeah, I've been fortunate that I've been able to do streaming and the Patreon and all of that. Which, by the way, if you're looking to get into a game, like you said, patreon.com/BDaveWalters. I've still been able to interact. So it's kind of made this time tolerable, if that makes sense. Like, to me, I've been with people this entire time, even though we've been apart. So, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a while though before cons are what we remember them as.
Gen Con canceled this year. I was hoping to go this year, and of course, then we had our own financial problems. But
maybe New York Comic-Con by November, and I'm still thinking no. I think the problem is not just will they put on the cons, but would anybody come? I think for the most part this year's probably a wash. Maybe
I think this year. I think this year is a wash. I really do.
Yeah. But
it's sad.
I think even when they start back, I think it's going to take some time for them to build up again. Though I don't think you're going to see just hundreds of thousands of people rushing to be bunched up together again, just automatically. I think we will get back there. I don't think we're not going to immediately.
I'm not sure we'll ever go back to like it was after this, because I think I'd like to think that at least something good comes out of this, and we learn to be a little more mindful of these large groups. Everyone always talked about convention funk or the convention crud. Yeah, and that's a problem. And it shows you. There's a number of questions coming in.
If they'd done Comic-Con in July this year, I mean, it's thousands of people would die afterwards. Yeah.
So we're getting a lot of questions about Vampire instead of what we were going on. Though,
no, lay them on me.
Okay. Darth and Terry, when can we expect your presidential campaign from the Undisputed Baron of the Valley? You know, if I've got to vote for somebody,
hey,
Temple's a pretty good vote.
Hey, they run the DC game. Not me. I will tell you. This isn't a spoiler because I don't think it's ever going to happen. But I very much told Jason, I'm like, you do know Victor would ghoul the governor. You know that, right? Like that would be like you would just do that. Like, you know that, right?
I can see it. I can see it.
Yeah. That'd be like, step 1, round 1, minute 1. Go to a fundraiser, dominate here.
Governor, a couple senators. I could see it.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
100%.
Okay, Rain's Adventure. How do you feel about writing a novel for the World of Darkness based out of the Free State?
Hashtag spoilers.
Oh, we'll leave that one there then. Rose Dragoness wants to know if you're going to come to the Onyx Path convention, and I think that's referring to that the Onyx Path online convention they're doing here coming up, where they're doing basically
like 14th, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm doing a thing for that.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's supposed to be a secret or not, so I won't tell you what I'm doing. But yeah, I'll be there for that.
That's a weekend I'm recording the DC by Night. That's our Saturday recording, so that pretty much kills my entire weekend because we record 2 episodes at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a 6 to 8 hour block of recording, and then because we stream Sundays, I have to do all my audio cleanup on the recording that night and Sunday morning so that I can have it ready in time for stream. Because unlike a lot of the streams, we record all of ours like LA by Night did this year or this last season. We do that for all of our DC episodes. And so there's a significant amount of work that goes in. So on a weekend like where they're doing the virtual con, I'm pretty much out of the net the whole weekend. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't do any of that.
It's an interesting time. Like that day, I have 3 games that day. I have 2 charity streams and a normal on the 14th.
Wait a minute, that's a standard Saturday. That's a standard Saturday or standard Sunday for you, isn't it?
Dude, man, it is.
I've seen the schedule.
That's the thing. Like nobody feels bad for me, but yeah, I run 6 to 10 games.
As a storyteller, I feel bad for you. That is so much to plan for that many games. It's
a lot. It's a good problem. It's a champagne problem. You know, it definitely beats dick and ditches, but but it's a lot.
It is. It's hard. I'm doing DC and I'm not starting Wraith up until DC ends. So that should tell you how much bandwidth I have to do both. Now I have a question for you that I've been dying to ask. Salvage Marines, are we ever going to get to see this? Because damn it, I know you've talked about it before, and I keep looking for info. And
honestly, I put the odds at 50-50.
Okay, because I've been looking for it.
It was in post and undergoing some reshoots right when the pandemic hit. So I put the odds at 50-50.
Yeah,
probably. I'd say 51 towards yes.
That's what I've been wanting to ask for a while, because ever since I've started following you and keep, seeing what you're doing, I saw Salvage Marines. I'm like, okay, well, where is it?
Man, girl, same. Yeah, no, that's very happy with that. That was a great thing. Yeah. Yep. I put the odds at 50-50.
50-50. Okay. Well, you're the optimist, so that worries me. That worries me, but I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take it. I mean, it's better than nothing. Somebody wants to know what Salvage Marines is. Tobias does. Tobias the Masquerade. He's actually a regular on DC's on McStabber Studios. So
it is a series that I did with Casper Van Dien, based on the novels written by my buddy Sean Michael Argo. I wrote episodes 7 through 12 of the series, and I did rewrites on 1 through 6, and I am in either episode 1 or episode 2. Yeah, and it's like Game of Thrones meets Battlestar Galactica. It's nice. You should read the books, even if the
I didn't know there's books.
See the light of day.
I didn't know there's books. Now I got to go and find them. Now Vancouver
Good friend of
sent
mine
me
wrote 'em.
Vancouver by night. I think he already left the channel, but I'll make sure he video on demands it. He sent me one on Twitter. He wants to know if you were in a car in an 80s movie, who would be Riggs and who would be Murtaugh?
I mean, at this exact second, I definitely feel too old for this shit. You know, I don't know. I guess you'd be Riggs to my Murtaugh. Yeah.
For those that know me, I'm not wearing my rings like I normally do. I normally have a Malkavian signet ring from probably the same place you got your Ventrue ring. I have one I wear on this pinky all the time. I'm just not wearing today because my hands were not up to holding rings.
They were
puffy. They were puffy today, and then it doesn't fit right. But
it's weird. That happens to me sometimes too.
I'll take Riggs. I'm fine with that because I'm a Malkavian. Yeah, I'm a Malkavian.
I'm too old for this. Yep.
Yeah, you're going to retire, right? Oh wait a minute.
This was one last case, right?
Yep, one last case.
Then I'm going to buy a boat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to know where to get the rings. Hit me up on Discord or on Twitter, and I'll tell you where to get it. It's a place called Fox Rings. They will literally print anything you want onto a ring. Literally. I mean,
mine was a gift from Jason. I don't know where he got it. So,
I saw exactly where exactly where I can get that ring, and it's a place called Fox Rings. You give them an image, they will etch it onto a ring and send it to you. I'm going to get a ministry for this finger because of the good Reverend. Let me get an amen, brothers and sisters, because I enjoyed the Reverend that much. So I need the one on this ring finger here.
The ministry hasn't gotten enough play. We definitely need to revisit that. I'm introducing some ministry NPCs for that very reason. Yep.
Yeah. I loved playing him. I'll be honest. I don't even think I'd have time to play in your games anymore though. Cause I mean, growing a Twitch stream and making a dedicated studio.
Yes.
Cause I'm actually making a studio in my house, an actual real studio. So.
Yeah. No, believe me, I know. If you look over here, it's all Doc Brown over here with my audio equipment, and I got the camera and all that stuff that's and the lights and everything. I just gotta try and arrange it. It's like the world's worst game of Jenga, trying to make it work in here.
At our highest point, when everyone was playing locally, we were up to 7 cameras, 5 mics, and a remote player at the same time, and it is insane what I've gone through. It's crazy.
Yeah, but that's what you got to do, man, to make it happen.
If you want to share stories, and I know you understand, how in these times, in these times with what's going on, sharing the stories, sharing, your backgrounds, or just a totally fantastical tale that has nothing to do with the real world, brings people together at a time when there's too many people trying to divide us.
Yeah, give people somewhere where they can get lost, and they'll enjoy it. Yeah. But I tell you, unfortunately, I have to scoot.
Yep. One more question. We got one last.
Yes. No, let's do it. One more question.
Do you have any favorite NPCs in any of the games you run?
Ooh, that I run. I think I love Pepper a lot. For those of you that have been in my games, my Pepper of the Toreador from the Spice Rack. I love Pepper. Honestly, in many ways, I love them all. I think Fawn, my satyr from Long Beach, is probably the one that I love the most, because Fawn is just always there to have a good time. I think just really here's the sign, especially for my players from my Patreon. You can tell which NPCs I like the most because they turn up the most often.
What, you're not going to say it's when you NPC'd Lily?
I mean,
I'm just messing with you.
I'm just saying it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Now,
to be able to.
While we were doing this, a number of people donated bits for it. I would like you to hit me up on Twitter what charity you would like them to go to.
The Bail Project.
The Bail Project?
The Bail Project.
Because we will give all those proceeds over to that, because the purpose in this was not to do that kind of thing. This was to let people hear firsthand from somebody with experience.
Tanya, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I apologize. But Tanya DePass, Cypher on Twitter, has been streaming all week raising money for the Bail Project, and it's been insane how much has been raised in the generosity of the community. So if you're looking to do something, hook them up, the Bail Project.
Yep, and we will be giving all the bits, donations, and everything to it, because, like I said, we weren't trying to do this to make money or drive traffic to the channel. you touched me with what you said on Sunday, and you touched my wife, and you reminded me of the privilege that, you know, on a day-to-day basis, I generally didn't think about it. You know,
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking the time to sit and talk with me. I appreciate you all taking the time to listen, which that's the conversation in listening and understanding is what we need right now more than anything else. So thank
we
you
do.
for that. And
We really do.
like I said, at B. Dave Walters on Twitter, DMs are open. You know, hit me up on there and we'll talk.
And he's not joking. He is very serious about that because he's answered DMs back and forth. How do you think this happened? I sent him a DM Monday. Thank you for short notice, by the way, because that was sent him on Monday because I'd sat there all night and thought about it. I was like, I need to ask B. Dave if he'll come on. I'll give up our Wednesday vampire stream.
Yep.
You know, I have lots of streams. I got time. I can do it. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I'm not doing my normal outro. I am not plugging all the shows we have like I normally do. B. Dave can plug any of his as he wants. I will say, if you like what B. Dave does, you want to get in on it, get on his Patreon. Even if you don't have enough to get on the big stuff for it, anything to show your support for him, go for it, because B. Dave is a nice guy. He really is. And, you know, show your love for him, you know. So
I appreciate
if
that.
anything you want to plug, you go ahead, because this is for you to plug, not me.
No, again, B. Dave Walters on Twitter, B. Dave Walters on Patreon. Again, I'm fortunate that I do get to participate in a lot of streams. Let's see, from now, tomorrow morning is the debut of the Ascension D&D actual play on Roll For It. I think that's at noon Eastern. Wait, I think 10.
You're going to be on Roll For It? Awesome.
Yeah, that's tomorrow. 10 a.m. Pacific, I think, is when we start. Friday is going to be the finale of Anarchs of New York. Sunday is we do our one-on-one shots, where I get to interview fascinating people from the gaming industry and talk to them about their life.
And your show overlaps mine a little bit, but I forgive you. It's okay, because I still love you. It's okay.
I appreciate that. That's VODs. You can watch my show on VOD.
Well, you can watch either one on.
Watch my show on VOD.
We watch either one on VOD. I still love you. You know, it overlaps. It overlaps. You know, we love Jake too. So you know.
Yes, exactly. The thin blood rapscallion, right?
Oh my God, he caused so much problem in our Chronicle. It was great.
Then Tuesdays is Silver and Steel on D&D Beyond. And pretty much any time that I'm not doing that, I'm either running Patreon games or creating YouTube content or trying to save the world one word at a time. So yeah,
always working, always trying to make a living. So
there it is. Wait, I don't know if my shirt ever showed up on this. Yeah, these
it does.
Destroy Fascists. Yep, there you go.
It shows up right there on everybody. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And you know, we'll see you when we see you, because this is not for me to promote myself. So I'd like to say goodnight to everybody, and we'll transition out.
Be safe out there.